hundreds of Palestinians indiscriminately shot dead by Israeli soldiers in Gaza kill zone. Now, this kill zone is the Netzarim line. The Netzarim now is a massive base in the central part of Gaza, dividing or splitting Gaza into two. Israel started off with a very limited base with locations in the central, eastern, and western parts of Gaza to prevent people from going back to the north if they fled the north to the south before. Now they're, of course, implementing or have been implementing the general's plan in North Gaza, which is full-blown ethnic cleansing to get rid of all of the population. And now more statements are coming from people within the army. More and more statements coming in, people confirming that they are killing people indiscriminately in those areas. And they describe this as an actual kill zone. Kill zone. Anyone who comes to the area is shot dead indiscriminately. Then this, several soldiers, they told Haaretz as well that the killing was random. Their aim was to kill people randomly. They brand everyone as terrorists, and anyone who enters gets shot. According to them, they were competing between themselves, units within the genocide army inside of Gaza. They were competing who kills more, shooting and laughing. They found it funny. Anyone who challenged the soldiers or the commanders and said, well, look, this is an unarmed person, how comes we're hitting them? They would be like, there are no innocent people. Everyone is a terrorist, so you need to kill all of them. In one instance, they shot a 16-year-old with a hail of bullets, shooting and laughing. In another case, they gave a list, because they need to give lists of everyone they kill inside of Gaza, of over 200 people, 10 of which only, again, according to them, were Hamas. They could not prove that anyone else was Hamas. And even the 10, that would be in question as well. But we're talking about 95% innocent civilians, which is really and truly a very close image. I mean, it might be even more than that when it comes to Gaza, where the majority of the people are innocent civilians being killed for fun when it comes to the Israeli army. These statements coming from the Israeli divisions fighting in Gaza, including Kfir division and other divisions too, have become more of a norm inside of Israel. There has been a big development and big shift when it comes to the Israeli coverage of what's happening in Gaza. The previous Israeli defense minister, Ya'alon, called what Israel is doing an ethnic cleansing. And he didn't take it back, despite a lot of pressure on him to take it back. No, we're not committing ethnic cleansing. But more and more people are comfortable in admitting that what they're doing is ethnic cleansing inside of Gaza and a genocide. And that's important for at least, some in the Israeli society and the public opinion, because for a very long period inside of Israel, it's as if the population was completely blinded by what's happening. No one would say anything about any person being killed. There were suspicions, within Israeli society that, oh no, the Palestinian people, they even fake their deaths when it comes to the images that we're seeing circulating all across social media with a case of genocide that is being live streamed for the first time in history. So there is a change, and also this is something to apply pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu. We are close to a period where, again, we might see a ceasefire soon. More and more talks about a ceasefire. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but reports from every single side are confirming that there's an advanced stage of a ceasefire. And there's more pressure internally on Benjamin Netanyahu to accept a deal. As a matter of fact, a large chunk of people, well, also politicians too, and political parties inside of Israel, they are calling Netanyahu to have an all-out deal, not even a phase deal, which is the thing that he's most likely going to when it comes to the ceasefire. That was the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about, in the last couple of days, there were intense blows between Ansarullah and Israel. Israel targeted key infrastructure areas inside of Yemen, including power plants, two power grids. And Yemen responded, well, as they have for a very long time, with continuous ballistic missiles and drones on Israel. And today, they confirmed, Ansarullah, that they targeted the Ministry of Defense. The leader of Ansarullah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, said, we targeted the Israeli Ministry of Defense in conjunction with the aggression against the US, against us, excuse me. We will continue the escalation and we do not care about the enemies. Ansarullah made several statements when it comes to them targeting Israel and this whole fear from Israel. One of the people who actually made statements when it comes to that was called Al-Bukhaiti. Al-Bukhaiti is a spokesman in the political side of Ansarullah. And he made a couple of statements in relation to Yemen targeting Israel, because many people were telling them, well, how are you targeting them now? You know, they're targeting infrastructure in Yemen. He said, no, we actually reassure, firstly, our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in the nation altogether and all the free people of the world that our attacks will continue. Our attacks will continue until the genocide ends and the siege is lifted off Gaza. Our battle with them will continue until the end of days as well. Our position is moral and religious. The material losses are incomparable to the divine punishment if we do not take action against this enemy. And it doesn't matter how much power the enemy has, God's power is greater, and we fight in his path. We rely on him in this struggle, in our fighting, and we do whatever we can. Simple, plain and simple from their perspective, you know. This is what we believe in. This is our moral compass. This is our faith. And we fight. Simple. We don't care about Israel, and they do not scare us. We would be scared if we don't take action from the punishment that we would be receiving if we were silent. Plain and simple when it comes to Ansarullah. And in many cases, sometimes it's very refreshing to see, you know, such honesty coming from these people. Which leads me to the actual activities that happened from Ansarullah. So they had a statement. They had a couple of representatives speaking when it comes to the actions against Israel. And they also published a few videos too. Firstly, Yahya Sariya, he confirmed that, yeah, we carried out these attacks, strategic locations in occupied Jaffa, and we will continue to do so up until the genocide ends and the siege is lifted. And here we have the moment that the missile was landing. So clearly no interception when it comes to Israel. They usually intercept these with Arrow 3, the hypersonic exoatmospheric anti-aircraft system, or air defense system. One missile costs approximately 3 million, but they couldn't do anything this time. And this is also a live image of the moment of landing. And there was a fair bit of damage too. And again, no interception from Israel. This has been a very significant landing, by the way. And Israel always, of course, tries to downplay it. They don't even report many of these landings in many cases. And they focused only on their attack in Yemen, where they had a significant attack on the Yemeni infrastructure and power plants as well. However, in Yemen, they confirmed that very shortly after the attack, there was the electricity went back to normal to all of the provinces inside of Yemen. The General Electricity Corporation announces the return of electricity to all governorates, which means, okay, it was an attack on a strategic location, but at the end of the day, the service continued and people still had electricity and energy. But the thing is, why are the Israelis now attacking Yemen? And of course, we had Abu Ubaidah as well. He congratulated the Ansarullah, saying that they are our real brothers. They do not stop, and we asked them to continue up until the Zionists stop the genocide and lift the siege of Gaza. But why is Israel now escalating in Yemen, and do they have a plan? Well, it seems like Israel is on a massive intimidation campaign against not only the countries of the region, but the people of the region, everyone globally. Israel is on a massive campaign after they have been humiliated on a military level with the resistance and the internal damage and the economic damage that they are facing due to ongoing attacks from the Palestinian resistance, previously from the Lebanese resistance, and the fact that one of their main ports in Eilat went bankrupt because of the embargo of Ansarullah from the south, including continued attacks on strategic locations inside of Israel, such as main and key strategic military bases and energy fields in certain cases as well. Israel wants to regain that image of the power in the Middle East, the main and strongest country in the Middle East that can dictate how things happen and where things go to. However, so far they only carried out 2 to 3 attacks on Yemen, despite Yemen attacking them day in, day out. In many cases, we have daily attacks from Ansarullah, whether it's drones or hypersonic missiles. And the attack of Yemen coming from Israel is a very difficult one, by the way. 2,000 kilometers. It's a very long range. It has a lot of risk factors involved too. And it's ineffective. It's ineffective because they do not stop the attacks against them. 14 months with a full-blown destruction and genocide in Gaza did not stop the Palestinian resistance. Likewise, in Lebanon, they could not stop the attacks of the Lebanese resistance up until a day before the ceasefire took place, with over 300, some reports said 500 missiles launched on Israel. And they wouldn't be able to do that with Ansarullah. But what Israel is interested in doing is embedding, having this fear embedded in the people of the region that, no, we have the final word, and anyone who attacks us is going to be punished. But Ansarullah told them, no, we don't fear you, we fear God. That's what they say. And we will continue to support the Palestinian people up until the genocide ends and the siege is lifted. So there's a big campaign coming from Israel to try and gain back the momentum and this tarnished image and the lack of intimidation and the fact that they have become a punching bag, and no one is really caring or worried about their responses and willing to sacrifice. So it's against Yemen, it's against Lebanon, it's against Syria, it's in Gaza, it's in the West Bank. They're warning, they're escalating, everything. But it's not only against them, it's also against Iran. And not just against Iran, it's also against Egypt. Senior analysts are talking about, military analysts inside of Israel are talking about the next evil may come upon us from Sinai. That's a guy called Alon Ben David. He's one of the main military analysts inside of Israel. Eye south. The next evil may come from Sinai. Before we enter into a friction with a new adversary, we need to look at the big picture and not ignore the rising forces in the Middle East. This is something that, well, we've been speaking about this from the beginning of the genocide and how Israel views Egypt, despite the fact that Egypt did not participate in this and did not take nowhere near enough action to stop the genocide in Gaza that's happening next to them. However, despite all of that, Israel still views them as a threat. Bezalel Smotrich previously said that Egypt is a participant in the 7th of October attacks because they enabled Hamas. And, well, Israel and its main allies, the Genocide Coalition, could not force Egypt to completely open the borders to allow a mass exodus of the Palestinian people, where Israel could have gotten this over and done with when it comes to the population a very long time ago. There's an argument when it comes to the resistance, but when it comes to the civilians, and then Israel would completely block the borders and not allow them back in. However, we also had articles from, well, previous figures in the Israeli Military Intelligence Directorate. One of them was a specialist in the field of infrastructure in the Arab world, talking about the massive tunnel network inside of Sinai that's preparing to attack Israel, and confirming indirectly in that article that I shared about a year ago that no, Egypt has strategic tunnels inside of Sinai. They go against everything in the peace treaty that we have with them. And as a matter of fact, they've breached every line of that peace treaty, and they deployed so much forces and heavy artillery and equipment in the Sinai Peninsula. All of that is going against the peace treaty that we have with them. This needs to be a demilitarized zone. And now Israel is escalating against them and are escalating against Jordan too. There have been many talks in recent days about a risk when it comes to Jordan. And there were reports of Israeli figures meeting in Jordan, supposedly worries about Iran participating in Jordan too. And this is coming simultaneously, well, with coordination. Iran and Egypt discussed collective action against Israel. They met in Cairo. There was a meeting for the D8 member states for coordination, strategic coordination, and strategic partnerships too. And there were meetings between the Iranian president and the Egyptian president, and the Iranian president and the Turkish president as well. And they spoke about all of these things. Now, mind you, when it comes to, for example, Iran and Turkey, they have a strategic council together. And Iran and Egypt have been developing stronger ties. Before, it was a no-no when it comes to Egypt having any sort of ties with Iran, by the way, primarily due to American and Israeli pressure. Well, American pressures that is Israeli-led generally. However, even the countries with governments that are traditionally aligned with the United States, there has been a shift. There has been an undeniable shift. Again, despite any valid criticism you can have of these countries when it comes to what's happening in Gaza. What's happening in Gaza should have, raised alarm bells, and it requested action from many countries from day one, not even from day two when it comes to the genocide. However, in the bigger picture, there are definitely coordinations, and these people, they're not naive. They're reading what the Israelis are saying. They're reading what the Israeli media is saying, and they understand what is being prepared for them too. And although they have a level of strategic region when it comes to that, well, they need to be prepared. And the past 14 months proved that you're prepared if you have the force. If you don't have power, then you're ill prepared. No, Israel does not really go against countries that have proper military. Israel is an expert in cowardice bullying against some resistance movements and innocent people. I mean, even if you talk about it in Gaza, just against the civilians, really. This is how they fight, because they're cowards at the end of the day, and they lack that will to fight, and they're struggling. That's why they're struggling when it comes to the military. But when it comes to countries with actual armies, no, they bear that in mind, and they take it into consideration. That's why their attack against Iran, it was carried out from the Iraqi airspace, where the United States had, freedom of maneuverability in that area. And the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, I already mentioned it, but an increased coordination between also Turkey and Iran. Turkey and Iran, they also had a meeting on the side of the D8 summit too, and they spoke about Syria. Pezeshkian, he met with Erdoğan and Sisi too, talking about Syria's territorial integrity, and the Israeli aggression against Syria, with President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, who is now the key player when it comes to Syria, undeniably. Turkey has become the key player when it comes to Syria. They're having a lot of advancements when it comes to the northeast. And their coordination with Iran is very important, would be very important. I mean, the fact that they have already coordinated with Iran before the operation to take down the Assad government indicates that there have been understandings between the two parties. And now the fact that they're also meeting again face to face and confirming the continuation of their strategic relationship is exceptionally important. They just recently signed a deal worth $90 billion for the coming years when it comes to trade. Now they've been already good trade partners for a very long time, but strategic does not only mean trade and economy, and both Turkey and Iran are coordinating at very high levels. And the fact that there is at least coordination, by the way, in the West Asian / North African region between Turkey, Iran, and Egypt is exceptionally important. If there is a trio, and again, it would be very difficult to combine these three countries and let them accept one way or everything, agree on everything when it comes to, for example, foreign policy or what have you. But the fact that there is coordination and strategic coordination is exceptionally important, very, very important, because you have Egypt, which is the biggest country in Northeast Africa, key player, massive army as well. Turkey, likewise, and Iran as well. And it would be very important to continue that strategic relationship and nurture it as well when it comes to the three countries. Now, when it comes to Iran, they are more liberated from US pressure. When it comes to Egypt and Turkey, there is a level of US pressure undeniably when it comes to, their foreign policy and what happens inside the region. Well, that's why in the past 14 months, the only country in an official state that actually attacked Israel was Iran. Egypt had things, but they were quickly diffused. There were altercations and confrontations between the Egyptian army and the Israeli army in Gaza approximately 3 times, and soldiers were killed in these confrontations, by the way. But both parties agreed that they would not publish too many details about them so that they do not escalate the tensions, because they did not want to have an all-out war together. And again, of course, any criticism is completely understood when it comes to that, but the fact that they are coordinating is highly important, and this coordination has to continue because it can help at the end of the day the people of the region and also the Palestinian people, undeniably, if there is a good level of coordination between these countries, to especially apply pressure on the genocide state.